morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living here in beautiful San Clemente. We're glad you're here with us and we want you to sing with us this morning on our first sing-along song. Please join Kimberly and Wade on the very, very famous I Love Myself the Way I Am.
Well, we all love you.
Atmosphere of worship, the gift of your presence here this morning. We like to celebrate our spirituality on Sundays by listening to this amazing music, hearing a message that can touch and inspire us by Dr. Reverend today, Dr. Heather today, and also through the company and the fellowship of each other. It's a really beautiful thing, and we're glad you're here this morning. We're going to start this morning with our ceremony, lighting the flames of faith. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from one great universal presence, which we call Spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of compliance with the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And as Reverend Judy lights the last candle, let it represent the path that brought you here this morning. And I invite you now to join me in our opening affirmative prayer. God is, and I am. God is, and I am. God is, and I am. I recognize that God is life. It's all of life. Every little teeny tiny speck and every grandness of it, it's all life, and it's all the life of God. And I am too. I am. And so I allow this feeling to vibrate through the very truth and very nature of who I am. I am a spiritual being by nature. And I'm here to share all of my gifts, all the God gifts that have been given to me. I like to pass it on, and it's beautiful. I recognize that everything that's taking place in life is here for me to observe, to take in, to grow, to stretch, and to become more of who I was meant to be. That Christ at the very center of who I am, that nature of what I am. And I give such great thanks for this. Thank you, God. Thank you for this truth for each and every one of us. That we were made in that perfection and that image of love itself. And so I rejoice in this, and my heart fills with thanksgiving as I release these words into an absolute certain law that responds to the words, it responds to the feelings, it responds to me. And so I just let it be and know that God is. And together we say, and so it is. And now it's my pleasure to invite Tony Sparks to come up and read our affirmation for this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I believe in God, the one creative intelligence, operating through the universe and operating throughout my entire being, now and always. I believe this perfect spirit operates upon a law of mind and creates my experience exactly according to my belief. I believe this perfect creative intelligence can be used by me and by every other person to produce health, abundance, and love in mind, body, and total life experience. I use it now, and I rejoice in it. And so it is.
And our affirmation for today is, I love living in a world filled with paradox. It is easy for me to proclaim the truth, regardless of what appears. Knowing that God is my source, I give thanks for my wealth and prosperity. And so it is.
That was perfect, David. Thank you, Tony. A big affirmation to the affirmation. And please welcome our solos today, Chelsea Vann.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way that words do when they settle neath your skin. Kept on the inside with no sunlight, sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. See you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you be brave. I wanna see you be brave. Everybody's been there, everybody's been stared down by the enemy. Falling for the fear and done some disappearing. Bow down to the mighty. Don't walk, stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is. Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. What you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. And since your history of silence won't do you any good, dare you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. What you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. See you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you be brave. See you be brave. See you be
Chelsea, that was wonderful. What a great choice and how well you did it. It is such a sermon in itself. That is what we want, for people to be authentic, say the truth, let the words fall out, and be brave. Don't hold back. My message this morning is about paradox, and it is about self and prosperity. And as usual, the entire universe supports us, supported me, in giving me stuff. So this, I don't know if you all have noticed, but the whole month of October, the daily guides are by Ernest Holmes. They're every year in October, just pay attention. Ernest Holmes is the one writing the daily guides. They're from various places in his writing. And so this one, today's, is the spirit of praise, begins with the quote from Seneca, "Keep faith with reason, for she will convert thy soul." And then here's what Ernest says, "If then we go about cursing," I do not mean literally damning, but cursing by disapproval, cursing by criticism, cursing by continuous fault finding, then we are condemning our environment and it shrivels up, becomes distasteful. Suppose we begin to silently bless it. Remember, there is adequate reason behind it. When the psalmist said, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless thy holy name," he was lifting himself up into rarer appreciation of what the universe meant to him. Now, the only way we can tell this to do it is to do it. I am thoroughly satisfied that as we deal with people, the silent recognition which we have of them causes them automatically to react to us in the nature of that recognition. I have seen it happen so many times. Then he gives an example. So, for instance, I once knew a man who said to a practitioner, "Where I work, the foreman takes particular pains to criticize me. Nothing I do is right, everything I do is wrong. And the only reason he keeps me is that I'm very valuable to him. But someday he's going to tell me that I am through, and I will be glad." Now, he worked with a practitioner. The man was told to no longer recognize the criticism. No longer recognize the criticism. If someone's criticizing you or that you think they're criticizing you, do not let it enter you. It's not yours. So he goes on to say, no longer recognize the criticism, but to recognize in that man only the principle of perfection, to praise that principle and bless it. So in a few months, the man was promoted, and he no longer worked under that foreman because now they were equals. That's the way it works. But while you're rehearsing the negativity, while you have your mind on the worst case scenario, what can come forth? All that can come forth is more of the worst case, more of the thing you're afraid of or blaming or criticizing. This was, when I read it this morning, it really moved me for many reasons. For one, when I was in my 20s and as a teenager, at least in public, there were some words that were taboo for me. I would not say them. And I did not like it when someone else said those words. So, of course, who did I marry? A man that enjoyed cursing. And not this criticizing way, cursing. And he told me that every man cursed. And I said, that's not true, self-righteously thinking about my father. My father would not use language like that. Well, there was a wedding, a family wedding, and my husband gleefully said, "Guess who I just heard say blank?" Okay. I'm not going to ever cast a prophecy on someone else rather than good. So there's good for me and I ought to have it. Let's say that together. There's good for me and I ought to have it. And that's true. You ought to have it because the principle in you is pure prosperity, is life itself. So, I wanted to start with this because it illustrates so I'm close to the start. It's a story I've told before, but it illustrates a really good point. A man decided to go on a cruise, so he went down to the harbor and he saw sea cruises, $50. $50! Wow, what a deal! So of course, he purchased a ticket, and the next thing he knew, He was in a dinghy in the middle of the ocean, bumping his head, and no $50. So he paid the $50 and he sees in the horizon another man in a dinghy similar to his, and he hollers to the man, "Say, can you tell me, do they serve meals on these cruises?" And the other man says, "They didn't last year." That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But we do it when we rehearse the negativity, when we let our minds go to the worst case scenarios, when we think, when we worry, when we fear, when we fret, when we blame or gossip. What we're doing is we're filling our consciousness. That creative something that's always saying, "Yes, my beloved," we're filling it with junk. We're filling it with garbage. And it's time to take responsibility for what is going into your mind and what is coming out of your mouth and what is going on in your life. It all is connected. That's the good news. It's all connected. So if you have a story about how life is hard, about how things don't ever work out for you, how there's never been enough money, or there's always more month than money, whatever the story is, it's time to change it. The source of supply lives in you. The source of supply just simply says, "Very well, I can do that for you, very well." And so it is. You know, our thoughts, this is proven medically, our thoughts change our bodies. They change what's going on in our bodies. When we are happy, when we're filled with gratitude, when we're filled with love, our bodies are filled with endorphins and all of life is good, and you know that. For those of you who have an exercise program that you love, you know that. You get into the program, you might have resisted going in, but once you're in it, it feels so good. That's because the endorphins are moving in your body saying, "Yes, my beloved, do more of this, this feels good." And in the very same way, when we are blaming, gossiping, criticizing, fearing, we are putting toxins in our body. We are filling them with poison. And the poison will have its way in our body. It'll show up as disease, as imperfect health, as some physical or relational or financial issue. It always is, everything about you is about you. Everything about you is about you, and you are always demonstrating your consciousness. And that's the good news, and that's even the better news. Because there's no one else. There's no God, there's no devil, there is nothing outside yourself that is doing anything to or for your life. It's all happening through you. It's all happening through your awareness, through your consciousness. So, another thing about when we notice what we're noticing, that's something Mary Morrissey was very fond of saying. When you notice what you're noticing, you actually change the vibration of what you're noticing. So it's the first step. Notice what you're noticing. Notice what you're thinking. Watch what your thoughts are. Don't judge them, just notice. Oh. And if you are tending toward the negative, stop yourself immediately and use an affirmation. You can take one. We have great affirmations for you every single Sunday. You could take an affirmation and say that affirmation, and you can even say it in the feeling that you've just been feeling. So if you're feeling afraid, say it with fear. I wonder if I can do it. I'll try. There is no try. There's do or don't do. There's no try. So let's say the affirmation is, I am available to more abundance than I have ever experienced before. And let's say I'm afraid. I am available to more abundance than I've ever had before. You see, it doesn't matter what the feeling is. That thing itself operates on the passion that it experiences through you. So, first thing is to notice what you're noticing, and then make a decision. If that isn't acceptable to you, here's a wonderful, easy thing to do. Ask yourself, what is the best thing that could happen for me now? Just ask that. What is the best thing that could happen for me now? Well, we could all win the lottery. We could all be given a diagnosis of perfect health. We could all be in relationships that are warm and rewarding. We could be playful and creative, like my cats. Someone asked me, am I going to talk about my cats? Yes, that was what I said about my cats. They're playful and creative. They are enjoying everything. And now that when they've realized that their treat bag makes a noise, as soon as I jiggle that treat bag, they both come running, tails high, like there's good for me and I ought to have it. I know that they're metaphysical cats because they're my cats. So, my kittens. And then I examine my own consciousness. You know, it's years and years and years, but think about how many years you've been thinking, how many years you've been in the culture you're in and been subjected to or subject to the beliefs of your culture. And how many hours a day, and I think it's 60,000 is the idea of how many thoughts we think in a typical day. 60,000 thoughts. How many are the same thoughts as yesterday? How many are not conscious at all, but they're just the result of this has been what I've been thinking? Well, it's time for a new idea. It's time for sanity like never before. That I am sane, and the best thing that could happen for me today is for me to wake up and stay awake. Not that I think you're sleeping. On Friday night we had Mike Chamberlain here, and he's the sweetest man. He was anchorman for ESPN for 10 years and for another 10 years, various television stations. And he is that kind of personality that he loves to talk with people, and he's very interesting. And we had a very small crowd. And that was okay, because when you have a gift to give, you give it, regardless of how many people are there to receive the gift. And you give it thankfully, which is exactly what he did. One of the stories he told, because he's been doing this so long, is he's gone to a lot of retirement homes, and he was in a retirement home in Escondido doing his thing. And one of the things he does is a song by Debbie Reynolds, was first by Debbie Reynolds, called The Tennessee Waltz. Anyone know that song besides me? Yeah. Well, it's a song about dancing with my darling to the Tennessee Waltz with an old friend I happened to see. This is a song about betrayal, and introduced him to my loved one, and while they were dancing, my friend stole my sweetheart from me. Well, I guess you really didn't have your sweetheart. Anyway, I've got all these ideas about the song, but it's a song that has emotion, and it's a sentimental song. So he says he's singing away, and they start laughing. And there's nothing funny about the song except, well, the whole content is kind of funny, but they're laughing, and he's going, what's going? Finally stops singing, and he says, what's going on? I'm missing the joke. And they say, she's sitting right there. Debbie Reynolds was sitting right there in the front row, listening to him sing, and that's what they were laughing about. But he was making up all sorts of things, which is what we do when we don't have the whole picture. We make up things, like my zipper's down, I've got spinach on my teeth, there's something about me that they're finding funny. Well, it's that he didn't know the whole picture. If you don't know the whole picture, what you could default to is gratitude and positivity. What are you grateful for today? What are you grateful for today? We have this wonderful music. We get to hear the music. We have these wonderful beings that we get to be beside and with. What can you bring as far as gratitude today? Because when you quit practicing and rehearsing the worst case scenario and learn to practice the best case scenario, learn to practice what is the very best thing that could happen and know that that's going to happen. When there's more on that side of the ledger of your consciousness than on the other side, then good things will just naturally occur. You won't have to pray about them. You won't have to affirm them. They're just happening because you have changed something at depth within you. I know some of you have been here in the center for a long time, practicing these principles. And you might say to me, but Heather, I'm still broke. And I will say, how many years did you rehearse worrying about that? How many hours of the day are you spending in fear, anxiety, or anger, or bitterness, or complaint? You see, when the scales get tipped the other way, the universe can't help itself. It's just going to roll over in ecstasy at your feet. So, I'd just like to remind you in closing, we're always thinking thoughts. We don't have a choice not to think thoughts. Even when we're in meditation, there's still thoughts. We're always thinking thoughts. When we notice what we're thinking, it changes it in a way, which is good because we've observed. When we notice that it's a negative thought we've been thinking, we can choose to go to what the best thing is. We can say an affirmation or an affirmative prayer and sit in that energy of oneness, of possibility. Sometimes I know that people get discouraged because the thing they're working on is the same thing month after month after month. And so I'm going to close with one of my favorite Rumi quotes, because this is the truth. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, come, even if you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come. And so it is. And now I'm going to pray for all of us. I'm going to include anything that concerns you. I know some of you have relatives close to one of the fires or have property there, and it is not that we close our eyes and hearts, but we know the truth for every being, everywhere. Okay, so please join me in consciousness. In this holy moment of right now, I know the truth, and the truth sets me free. I know that I am that one power, that there is only that and nothing else. There is only God and absolutely nothing else. There is only divine mind, creative principle. There's only the creative process and absolutely nothing else. All of these are names for the beloved, for the divine. And knowing it is everywhere present, knowing that it is omniscient and omniscient and omnipotent, I know that it is completely responsive to anything, any impress made upon it. And so today, I get my bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circus, and I make welcome, and I say yes to more good than I've ever imagined. I say yes to all kinds of prosperity, financial, relational, creative, every single kind of prosperity that there is, I say yes to right here, right now. What I know is that that thing itself is responding to me. I know this for myself, and I know it for every other being. I speak this word of power, knowing that when I say all is well and all shall be well, it's a prophecy of good. And then I look for it. I accept it. I look for it. I welcome it. I know it. I see more good. I let go of my fears, my worries, my concerns, no matter how comforting they've been, and I replace them gently but firmly with ideas of truth, with ideas of wholeness and passion and aliveness and gratitude. God is, I am. For knowing this, I'm so very grateful. I know it for myself, and I know it for every other being. It is entirely true. I'm so grateful. I simply, with that gratitude, place this word in the law of mind. God has it, it's done, and so it is. And now, Chelsea Vann.
Didn't I tell you I hear what stand in the light and be seen as you are.
Another home run. Oh, I used a baseball analogy. It's time for us to share our gifts, our tithes, our offerings. If the stewards would please come forward. I want to let you know a little bit more about this. Come on forward while I'm talking. So as the stewards are coming forward, Kimberly and Wade have come forward. Ed Lemberger is going to come forward. So what's going to happen today is slightly different, but the same. So we're going to read our prosperity affirmation together, and then we're going to have a couple of seconds of silence, because that's the time we can be grateful, and gratitude is a multiplier. So as we're grateful for all the prosperity in our lives, we bring even more prosperity into our lives. And then we're going to sing together, I Am So Blessed. And following that, Reverend Ed, who is from the Milwaukee Center for the Greater Milwaukee Center for Spiritual Living, he is one of my prayer partner, Lisa Stewart's musicians. He is fantastic, and he's going to offer to us one of his own pieces that he has written. And then after service, he's going to offer a workshop that includes his own music and a workshop. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. So let's take a moment. My offering is my acceptance of God as the source of my supply, and symbolizes my faith in the abundant flow of this supply.
be settled by now. It's a tune I wrote called The Wonder of Me. I let go, I let God be what God wants to be as me. In spirit strength I center, consciously I enter the source power that pours its light through me. From this place, in God's grace, I listen to what God intends for me. In spirit strength I center, consciously I enter the source power that pours its light through me. Right here, right now, I allow God's wisdom to shine from me. In consciousness I lift my consciousness eternally. Right here, right now, I allow God's wisdom to enlighten me. My consciousness I lift, and as I embrace each gift, God reveals the wonder of me. I let go, I let God be what God wants to be as me. On doubt and fear I'm fasting. God's love is everlasting. It's everywhere, and best of all, it's free. Right here, right now, I allow God's vision to shine from me. My consciousness I lift to the sky completely. Right here, right now, I allow God's wisdom to enlighten me. My consciousness I lift, and as I embrace each gift, God reveals the wonder of me. I release all false connection. God guides, I follow indeed. I increase my faith in source direction. From deep within my soul flows the truth of me. I know right here, right now, I allow God's wisdom to enlighten me. My consciousness I lift, and as I embrace each gift, God reveals the wonder of me. God reveals the wonder of me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Dan. I'd like to acknowledge those of you who are in service today or have been in service this week. If that's you, would you please stand so we can give you a lot of love. Thank you for everything you are, everything you do. And then the practitioners remain standing. The practitioners are trained in the art and science of affirmative prayer. If If you want your life transformed, make an appointment to see one of these beautiful people. You'll be so happy you did. To get a taste of that on Sunday, a short taste, drop by one of the prayer tables or the tranquility room, or out in the foyer, get questions answered. So the people in service today are Kathy Story, Tony Sparks, and Reverend Judy Chapman. If you're here for the very first time, and of course we know a couple of you are, please stand so we can acknowledge you. Or raise your hand if you don't want to stand. We're bringing you a gift, and keep standing because we're going to affirm you. Really happy that you're here today. Okay, so there's some information about our center, and then there's a welcome card. If you take it to the bookstore, you'll receive another gift. So fill it out first, of course. And let's affirm these people. Repeat after me, please, congregation. Something wonderful is happening here today.
Something wonderful is happening here today.
It's because you are here.
It's because you are here.
You bring a consciousness of joy.
You bring a consciousness of joy
And wisdom.
and wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Now you may be seated. And we have announcements.
Special last-minute announcement. There is a pink flyer in your program, Parent Forum, for all the parenting types here. This Wednesday, and we have a special guest feature. So take that out and read it. Now, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the 7 main chakras, their associated colors and frequencies, and the techniques for balancing them.
So today, we're going to introduce you to several of the lesser-known chakras and the activities you can do to stimulate them.
If you wish to stimulate your philtrum chakra, you should stay for Conscious Connection right here in the sanctuary for a brief discussion about today's topic. The philtrum is the 2 lines right here between your mouth and nose. Perhaps you knew that already, but you probably didn't know that the philtrum chakra is associated with the color chartreuse.
Then for those wanting to activate the tympanic membrane or eardrum chakra, at 12:30, Reverend Ed Lemberger will lead us in a workshop. We've already heard him sing one of his songs, and throughout his workshop this afternoon, he will interweave more of his original music with his message on personal and spiritual empowerment. And you can continue to balance your tympanic membrane chakra at home by purchasing his CDs and books and continuing to meditate on the colors cerulean.
This week at Wednesday's Wisdom, world-famous mystic Wade Wooldridge will tone your... You can switch the slides to the regular slides here. Will tone your amygdala chakra with his presentation about the book Factfulness, 10 Reasons We're Wrong About the World and Why It's Better Than We Think. The amygdala chakra is associated with the color calamine and the frequency of 6.4 furlongs per fortnight.
Those of you with an overabundance of spleen in your life would do well to attend Aidan Greeney's Science of Mind 101 class on Sundays at 12:30. The title is On the Spiritual Path, and it's ideal for both new students and anyone who would like to review the basics. The spleen chakra is associated with the color incarnadine.
For those wishing to delve even deeper, Dr. Heather, disclaimer, not a medical doctor, is still accepting applicants for the practitioner training. There is much material in this class that requires careful digestion, so special attention will be paid to the pancreas islets of Langerhans chakra, also associated with the color puce.
Daylight savings time ends next Sunday. Be sure to reset your clock. Daylight savings time is largely vestigial, and as such is often associated with the appendix chakra and the color thistle.
Next Sunday, you can also use that extra hour to prepare your dish for the first Sunday communal feast. This activity will, of course, open up your sigmoid colon chakra, which is often associated with the color amber.
If you have been having trouble visualizing your craft projects that you want to sell on Sunday, December 8th at the Holiday Boutique, now is the time to dip your Helix chakra. That's your big toe. Into the waters of creativity. Christmas is associated with the colors red and green, but the helix chakra is associated with the color heliotrope.
Thank you for your attention. We hope that this introduction to some of the lesser-known chakras has been illuminating.
And now, here come those little bundles of energy.